Okay, so it's cold and rainy here where I live in this small town, which is not great for my house production timeline. Okay, but you guys listening to Author Talk with me, Amy, Russell, Valerie. We have two amazing guests today, Wendi and Edward of ShadowPaw Press. So you guys talking about the weekend and diving in. A new plague has hit my house, you guys. We are no longer in strep territory. We are all in flu A territory. So I had a 2-day break, and now I've been hit with the flu A. So it's been a lot of fun. My kids are like lethargic and zombies. So that's a lot of fun.
Do the police put like yellow ribbon around your house so no one in the rest of the town will come over there?
It has been a fun adventure, and I will say that it's only January 8th, and I'm very much done with 2024, okay? It's been 8 days, and I'm just over it. I'm over this whole thing. I give up all of that stuff. But, you know, it's also raining, which is not great for the production on my new house, but it's exciting to go and see it. Me and the girls make a trip, even with their zombie-like selves, sitting in my car. Twice a week, and we go and see it. So that has been a lot of fun. I do want to point out and get your guys' opinion on this. I feel like I'm not going to be alone, and I'm very curious as to what Russell's opinion of this is. So on January 3rd, these Starbucks Stanley tumblers, limited edition, were released at Targets. Only a couple Targets, not all of them, okay? And there were people camping out at Target at 3 a.m. for these tumblers that are $50. Now, if you go on the marketplace and you see these tumblers, they are now selling for $250. They were only $50 tumblers. So I would not get up at 3 a.m. to wait for this tumbler. And I am an avid Starbucks supporter. Okay?
I did not know that.
I didn't know it either. Okay,
Yeah,
the last time Amy, let me put this in relevance for you. And the last time I camped out for anything was Prince tickets because it was going to be the last show in Houston, and it was, and we were in a line at the Astrodome, but that was totally worth it. I don't know if the Starbucks cup is worth it.
Prince,
I know.
Prince, well, what are you, 12?
Yeah. Reselling it, right? Reselling it for that like huge inflation is crazy, right? But
it is. But I got to tell you, there is a value to this. When we were in Japan, right before Christmas, my wife, when we were in Osaka, bought enough of those big Starbucks in Japan tumblers or whatever they are that she gave one to every member of our family for Christmas, and everyone. I mean, it's nothing, right? Everyone was very excited about it.
Well, yes.
It was a big deal to them.
The Stanley tumblers are all the rage right now, right?
I guess so.
And all of my mom groups is like the new mom cup, right? Is this huge, like, I don't know, 30, 40 ounce Stanley cup, right? So for Starbucks to collaborate with them and have their own Valentine's Day limited edition pink with glitter, which who knows, we all love pink with glitter, right? It was interesting to see this, and that people were camping out at 3 a.m. But here's the kicker, and Russell, this is where I'm curious to what your thoughts are on this. TikTok is what has made this cup famous. Is because people got influencers got early editions of this cup and posted about it and created this hype around this cup.
Wendi,
now it's gone in 4 minutes.
Wendi, Edward, here's the joke behind what she just said. We are constantly fighting about TikTok. Amy is anti-TikTok.
Disagree. We just disagree. We don't.
If you're such a big media person, why aren't you TikTok? Wendi, are you pro TikTok or anti-TikTok as far as promoting your book?
My daughter says, "Dad, I don't want you on TikTok." So basically, that.
Yes, exactly. Your daughter is a smart person, like my big media company. We're smart people.
So I've never even explored it, really.
I don't blame you. I wouldn't either. It's increased pirating of books by like extraordinary bounds. It's just
that is what the romance writers have told us.
Yeah, it's increased it, not just in the romance genres, but in several genres, right? It's just crazy. But it's also done so many different things. Like this whole cup thing, right? With the influencers getting them and posting about them, creating this hype, then these cups are gone in 4 minutes, right? It's creating all this like you have to have, or you're like left out and you're left behind, right?
Man,
and it's like
Amy has a lot to say about
it doesn't have to be that way. TikTok is just not my thing.
I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence with TikTok because I find my daughter sends me, she's in her 20s, and she sends me TikToks that are funny and amusing, and we share a laugh and that kind of thing. But I also find that it's a slippery slope. You just get sucked in. And then if you even look at one negative thing, they start popping up more and you're like, what is this? So, and I've tried doing a few videos on TikTok for my artwork, and it's really hard. I actually need somebody to do it for me because it's not that simple.
No, it's definitely difficult. But to Russell's argument, go check out Social Media Examiner because they feel the same way that I do, that Russell does not.
Well, you know, that old man that sold, 100,000 copies because a social media person from TikTok came by and aired. He was in the newspapers again this week. And he's still, because of that TikTok video being so big, 6 months ago, he's still a bestseller and he's still selling hot because
but
of
that's
it.
Like a J.K. Rowling event. That is not, that's like a 1 in like 8 billion chance. Like it doesn't always happen.
Winning the lottery kind of level of
exactly. I would love to win the lottery. Yeah, I would love to win it for sure. Well, but I hope all of you guys had a more exciting weekend than I did with the plague. So what all did everybody else do or engage in this weekend? Who wants to go first? Or I'm just going to start calling on people.
I bought groceries.
Groceries! Hey, that's a good.
I buy groceries every weekend. So
yes, are you brave enough to go on a Saturday? Because Saturday, I feel like, or Sunday even, is crazier.
No, we always go on Saturday, but yeah, at the moment I'm doing it because my wife is recovering from foot surgery, so I'm doing all of it myself. So yeah, I go on Saturday usually.
Wow, you're so brave. You're so brave. I'm
not that brave. It's not that busy a store.
Yes. Yeah. I try to just do it like an early morning if I can, just because it's like worse than like 5 o'clock traffic in my store. It's just that
okay.
bad.
I discovered something this weekend that I want to bring to the attention of our listeners before we get carried away too much. And that is, I'm talking about, and I want to thank the people that are listening to us on our podcast too. I might as well do that while I'm talking now, because we're top 10 independent book podcast in America. We want to thank the people that listen to us. Most people listen to us during the week, not when we do this live on Monday mornings while they're driving to work or whatever, and we want to thank them. But a lot of the people that listen to us, Amy, want to be authors, or they're authors, or they're interested in writing. And here is an area of possible publication that we may not have ever talked about. And that is, there's all these little video companies that are posting fiction pieces on YouTube, science fiction pieces or other type of pieces, and they're picking up stories that people write or post, and then they're putting them on YouTube. And so I think there might be an avenue out there for someone who doesn't want to write a book yet, or just interested in, maybe they've written a few short stories, seeing if their science fiction story might be acceptable to one of these companies that wants to publicize it. They might look into that.
There are some audio only science fiction magazines, I guess you'd call them.
Yeah, I bet that's kind of what these are.
Yeah.
When did those happen?
I'm not sure what YouTube adds to it. But I suppose it's the author or somebody reading the story.
No, it's not the author. It's the same voice that does all the stories on a particular channel is reading that story.
How did you discover that, Russell? How did you come across it?
I popped up on I would probably, for me, watching some other thing like on a short bit on Babylon 5 or something. So it popped up and said, you might be interested in this science fiction short story. Mm-hmm. And so I listened to one. And then when you listen to one, they start popping up all over. And that's what I did some of this weekend, is listen to these pieces. And I thought, wow, this is something I need to bring up on AuthorTalk.
That sounds amazing.
And Edward, thank you for bringing up that.
Yeah, I'm aware of, I think, is it Starship Sofa? Is that the one that does original fiction? I'm aware of some of those. Well, I'm aware that they exist. Obviously, I can't even remember for sure the names. I'm not very aware, but I'm somewhat aware that they exist as kind of independent magazines, I guess, but they're audio based. I don't listen to audiobooks. I prefer to read it, and I produced some audiobooks, and I've narrated some audiobooks, but they're not my favorite form. So I don't.
You have a good voice for an audiobook.
I was just thinking the same thing.
And I do. I listen. I'll listen to 3 audiobooks for every book I read now. Like I just got a book. It's a nonfiction. It's a serious political book about 2024. I just got it. It's 3 inches thick. It'll be the book that I will be reading over the next month, but I'm listening to the audiobook Brothers Karamazov. So I do both.
Yeah, I like both as well.
I do both too, yeah.
Anybody else doing the weekend thing? Wendy, what'd you do for the weekend?
My kids are visiting, so we hung out, and my oldest will be 28 right away, and my baby's 24. So it's nice having the 3 of them around. The oldest 2 live out on the East Coast, so we don't see them very often. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, family getting together is always fun. Family's important.
It can be fun, or it can be drama.
Okay, Russell, that's just Russell's opinion. No matter what, family.
I have awesome kids. I have really great, kids in my life. I'm lucky.
Did y'all have the chance to do anything with Russell? Yeah. Did y'all have the chance to do anything?
You should always agree with Russell.
We just watched some shows together and hung out and played some games, and they've been doing Lego. We bought a couple Lego sets over Christmas just as a family activity. Yeah, it's been fun.
How do you do a Lego activity as a family activity? How does that work?
Well, generally they come in the box has several packets. Mm-hmm. And so you can break it up with different people doing a different part, and then you bring it all together.
Oh, see, here's where you lost you lost Russell when you said you break it up into different parts and then it became a team effort. Yeah. Russell's not a team player.
I don't do
so you broke it right there for him. He's not a
Do you have family members that aren't team members?
What's that?
I said, do you have family members that aren't team members? I don't do teamwork.
No.
Yeah. In fact, there's nobody in my family that are really good team players.
Russell, teamwork makes the dream work. Okay.
Yes. Cliches scare me. I'm ready to talk about this book. I'm excited about this book. When I was getting out of law school, I was addicted to science fiction anthology books and loved them because that's how I escaped the tension of the memorization of law books to get ready for the final law exams and then get ready for the bar. So science fiction anthology books have had a big part of my life. I'm excited about this.
Well, this is the 4th one of these that I've done. And of course, they all grow out of my own podcast, The World Shapers, which just passed episode 150. And yeah, for 4 years now, I've kickstarted like each year's worth of guests. I invite them to be part of one of these anthologies. And so far 4 Kickstarters have succeeded, and I'm working now starting on number 5. It'll be the last one because I'm changing the focus of the podcast a bit. but that's where the authors came from. So it's an invitation only. It's not an open call, and it's all authors who I have interviewed, which is kind of cool. And they're some of the biggest authors working in the field today. And then what made this one special, and why Wendi is, nope, she's over there. There she is on my screen anyway. As an extended goal for this last Kickstarter was to have the book illustrated, and Wendi had illustrated my science fiction fantasy poetry book. I tumbled through the Diamond Dust a few years ago, and has gone on to illustrate a lot of books and a lot of book covers and stuff. And so I was very happy to bring her on board, and she did a black and white illustration for every one of the 19 stories, an original illustration. So yeah, that's where this one came from.
That is so cool. How about, are these authors you've worked with previously, or did they submit to you? How is the process of choosing?
Nope, they're just people that I interviewed once, and then I send them an email, say, the next anthology is coming up. You're welcome to be part of it. And let's see, who did I get? This one had Sherry Lynn Kenyon, was kind of hitting things off. Big name for sure. Gail Z. Martin, Joshua Palmatier, a whole great list of authors. And then because, Lavi Tidhar, because I'm the editor, I always get to put in a story too. So, so there's an Edward Willett in there.
So how is it once a year? How long has it been going, or what is the process?
Once a year. So it's Shapers of Worlds Volume 4, and these are my 4th year guests. The podcast started in August 2018, and so it was everybody up to August 2022 was invited from that year, from 2021 to 2022. The guests who were on the podcast were the ones who were invited to be part of this anthology. The next one has a few more guests because, again, I'm changing the focus. So I've extended it out to everybody right through December, my last guest of December. And this will be Shapers of Worlds Volume 5, assuming that it succeeds when I kickstart it in the spring.
That is so exciting. And these are authors from just all over the world, or just...
Yeah, we've got this particular one. We've got a few. There's always some Canadian authors because I'm in Canada. Most of the rest of them are American this time, but I've had UK authors. I've had, I guess Lavi Tidhar lives in the UK. I've had Australian authors. And one in the upcoming book, he's Canadian, but he lives in Japan. So it's always fun, of course, to do those interviews because you have to figure out, it's actually 6 a.m. tomorrow when you're speaking to me, or however it works out.
Exactly.
But they can be from anywhere because it's, as you can see from what we're doing right now, you can talk to people all around the world very easily these days.
Yeah, and that's amazing and plus you're able to connect and just get their whole back history. And then from what I was reading, it sounds like you've got a little bit of everything in the story offerings. Can you expand on that, please?
A lot of anthologies are themed anthologies. So, for example, I'm one of the core authors for an anthology that'll be out soon called Last Ditch, I think, which is about that last desperate effort by spies specifically to try to salvage the mission kind of thing. The bomb's about to go off, and they have, in the case of my story, he has 10 seconds to do something. And that's what I built my story around. But this is not a themed anthology. The only theme is that I interviewed all these people. And as a result, it's an author showcase. Like in my introduction, I compare it to a potluck.
Yes.
You're full at the end, but you get all sorts of different casseroles and things that you can fill up on. So there's quite a bit of fantasy in this one. Sometimes there's more science fiction, but there's also far future science fiction. There's very kind of gentle stories of the near future. There's far out speculation, a little bit of everything, something for everyone. There's horror, a touch of horror in it as well.
Awesome. And then tell us a little bit about yourself, because you have a quite a distinct background for your author, for your works. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I'm my potted thing is Edward Willett is the award-winning author of more than 60 books of fantasy, science fiction, and nonfiction for readers of all ages.
Yes, exactly.
I've written a lot of novels, a lot of short stories. I've written plays. I'm also an actor and a singer. I've done audiobooks. I've edited magazines. I started my career as a newspaper reporter. So anything to do with words now. And now I have the publishing company, ShadowPaw Press, that this book and many others are coming out from. So, yeah, I guess I've been busy.
And are you still producing your own books?
Yeah, I haven't had a novel since 2022, fall of 2022 is my last novel from Daw Books. This coming year, I will be possibly kickstarting some because I have experience with Kickstarters now, so I might kickstart some of my own work. But I also have a nonfiction book I'm working on, which also comes out of the podcast, and it's focused on my Canadian authors. And the podcast is all about the creative process. So it's all about everything from where do you get your ideas, that old hoary question, up through writing, revision, publishing, and all that. So it follows a very distinct path. And so it makes it really easy to turn it into a book with chapters focused on these different areas, and then pulling out the interesting things that my Canadian authors, specifically because I'll either publish it through ShadowPaw Press, or there's a Canadian publisher that might be interested in it as well.
Oh shoot, what was I going to ask? I guess.
Valerie, can I ask a question?
Yes, I thought I heard
it's
you.
It's a very stupid question, but I've got to ask it. Edward, when you say your experience now with Kickstarters, what the hell are you talking about?
That was on the tip of my tongue, Russell. Actually, I was like, Kickstarter. I want to ask something about Kickstarter.
Kickstarters are crowdsourced. It's a way to raise money from a lot of people to make a project happen. So in a Kickstarter campaign, you set a goal, you devise rewards at various levels that people will kick in at various levels. The big reward is obviously a copy of the project that you're producing. Kickstarters have been run for millions of dollars for technology items and things like that. Mine's more like, I think I set it at $12,000 Canadian, maybe 15,000. I got about 15,000, I guess, on this last one. And then I did a supplementary crowdfunder, which is a different form of the same thing, to make sure I could get the money to have the illustrations. And then you can run it for as long as you want. It's usually a month. When you don't get any money unless you reach your goal. So if you fail to reach your goal, all that work was for naught. But so far I've reached it. Hopefully you go over your goal. I think most people set the goal a little low so that they succeed and they get something.
Edward, what company is this that does these for you?
Kickstarter. You go to Kickstarter.
It's a company.
Yeah.
Online.
Yep. Kickstarter.com.
Russell, you remember Jeremy Jack did one?
Yes, I did, but it's been a while. Yeah. And Edward seems so familiar with it. I wanted to ask him from the first.
They're fantastic. They're fantastic. Edward, high five, because those are fantastic. If you know how to work them, and your offers are great, they can be very lucrative and beneficial to help get projects going. So
it's helpful. It's helpful that I have all these authors who have their own followings, because they can promote the Kickstarter to their readers, and they also offer rewards. So I've had things like first editions, or a popular one sometimes is what's called a Tuckerization, where you use the backer's name as a character in the story. I actually did one for the book that's out there now. The main character in my story was actually someone who backed the Kickstarter and kicked in, I don't know, $300 or $400 to have his name used as a character in the book. So there's all sorts of things you can do. You can offer anything for a reward. But yeah, it was a bit of it's definitely a learning curve, learning how to run one of these things. I feel fairly comfortable with it now, but I'm sure I could still do it better.
Yeah, because I know I a couple authors that did do it, but I still the premise of making it come to fruition at the end of the project is just amazing that people contribute. And what is, I guess the goal is they want to see you succeed.
Yeah, they're helping a creator create something. Really big on comics. Comics people are really into this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And then they get a copy of whatever it is they helped make happen at the end of it, plus whatever other rewards. And there are people who back. If I look at my backers, I'll see people who have backed 200 or 300 Kickstarters in the past. So they're like these super backers that this is just something they do, is back projects on Kickstarter and get whatever is being created at the end of it. I backed one for a special scanner actually once, and have this scanner that I got for scanning books, where you just open the book and scan the whole thing, as opposed to pushing it down onto a screen. It takes a picture from above. So there's all that kind of stuff on there too. Just endless things being kickstarted all the time. Millions and millions of dollars raised. Not by me, but by
other people. Yes. So basically, they're investors investing in you.
Yeah, there are patrons. You can think of them as patrons of the arts. So
yes, that's awesome. Oh, Amy, were you going to say something?
I was, because I was going to say when you mentioned patrons, I was like, oh, well, Patreon, right? There's a ton of people. A lot of YouTubers have a Patreon that people just give to monthly and those kinds of things, and it's like a support of the arts in a sense, right? Because I follow a lot of like crafting or audio voice actors and stuff on YouTube that have those, and that's where I was like, well, you know, when you said that, it just is kind of like there's all these kind of open opportunities out there, and it does help that your authors have followings to kind of help push these things and stuff too, but they can be very beneficial. So that's why I'm like, yay, Edward. Things like this make me so excited. I'm like happy as a clam right now. I'm like, yay.
They're a lot of work. They're a lot of work. And of course, this time we got illustrations as well, partially again through crowdfunding.
So how many stories are we talking about in this anthology?
There are 19.
Oh, that's great.
4 reprints, I think, and the rest are original.
Oh, that's awesome. And how about your personal story? What is that one about?
It's called The Canceller, and it's basically taking the idea of people being in social media bubbles and taking it and putting it into the real world and pushing it into the future. So in the future, the human population, at least in North America, has all been segregated out into whatever kind of bubble they want to live in, and everything is overseen by a super AI, and you can't move from one bubble to the next because there are AI roving robots out there who will make sure that you don't make it to that other bubble.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's kind of taking something that we're all aware of in the social media and turning it into an actuality.
Mm-hmm. And your inspiration for that?
Oh, just being on social media, I think, and just
so much.
When you write enough science fiction, everything flips in your head, and you're always thinking of ways to turn it into some sort of science fiction story, is what I find.
Yes.
Well, so that reminds me of this movie that is out, and it's like Leave the World Behind. I think Julia Roberts is in it.
We just watched that, actually.
I was gonna say I don't know if I have the guts to watch it because I've heard a lot of.
What's the name of this book? Movie?
It's called Leave the World Behind. Mm-hmm. I believe is what it's called.
Yes.
And it's literally about. It's like a science fiction novel come to life. Like, oh my gosh. It's like a cyber attack happens, right? And it's like how people deal with it and everything like that. But it's like fed because of like social media and all these things and AI and all this kind of feeds into it, right? And it's all the stuff that we have in everyday life now. Kind of like what you were saying, Edward, like everyday life, social media, all these things, you can flip them into different narratives, right? And so that's kind of what this is. So I don't have the guts to watch that movie, to be honest.
You can do it, Amy. It's not that dramatic. If you've seen any apocalypse movie, it's about that.
I know.
You faced down a plague over the last month. There's nothing you're not afraid of.
Yes, Amy.
You're not afraid
surviving over there.
You got the whole point was I was feeding Edward's point where he's like, you can use everyday life and flip it. Right. And this movie did that. And what Edward was saying reminded me of that. And I was like, holy crap, what you're talking about reminds me of a movie. So it's a whole thing.
When Amy goes home after she goes to the store and faces going home, that's braver than going to that movie. God.
Wendi, share a little bit about your artwork, please.
Oh, well, for this book, Ed actually kickstarted my illustrating career. When my kids were all leaving home, I've always wanted to be an illustrator. I've always drawn since I was little, and the very first book that I illustrated and was published was Ed's I Tumble Through the Diamond Dust. Is the name of that one, and it's a poetry book with an interesting twist because a line is taken from. You could explain it better, Ed. But anyway, so when he asked me to do this with him, I was all on board. He's great to work with. He lets me. I read the stories, so I'll read each story. And I usually read the story and then mull it over for a bit, and then I'll come up with an illustration. And Ed gets the opportunity to put some input in, and he's really easygoing. So it's right up my alley, because then I can just go with it. Yeah. So it was fun to read the book ahead of time and get to create.
Mm-hmm.
It was different. Ed said that there's some darker stories in here, but I found pretty much every story had a little bit of something uncomfortable in it. That's my interpretation. There's one that was quite amusing, but even in that one, there's like dead babies. So it was like, but it was a lot of fun, but it did kind of, I had to take little breaks from it. Yeah, there's a lot of fun in this, the stories. It was really,
so we're talking 19 illustrations, though. That's a lot. And you're doing, are they like pen and ink or what? Or
yeah. So I should have dragged out I have all the originals. They're black and white ink.
That's so cool.
So how long did each illustration take you?
I knew that was going to be a question, and I don't really. I usually try. This sounds so silly, but I'll put on shows that I've seen before, and then I'm like, okay, I'm halfway through this series, so it's taken me 8 hours or whatever. But the sketches, yeah, it just varies. It varies on. I put a lot of detail into these ones, so probably the good copies take about 8 hours. And they're a lot bigger than they are in the book. Like I do them quite big because then you can shrink it down. You can keep the detail. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I only asked because when you saw it, I mean, it just looked like amazing. Like it took you, 30 hours to do. Someone like me, okay, my stick figures look awful and they probably took me hours to do. So that's why I was like, those are immaculate. I love it.
It does. Like this, and I do everything by hand. So I don't know if you can see, there's a lot of line work. And they do take me a long time. A lot of people, they'll say that to me. They'll be like, oh, and I suppose you just whipped that out. Like you just did that in a couple hours or whatever. And I'm like, no, but why? I don't think that should be your gauge for how good an artist is. Right. Like it shouldn't be how fast they can do something. It's, but it took me a while.
It's like the details and the time and just I feel like the creative expression that comes across in that is really ultimately that should be the judge of it, So
well, and I'm
jealous.
I'm 52 and I've been drawing since I was 5. So I've been practicing a really long time. So
wow.
But yeah, you have to. And Ed's an artist too, because I remember drawings in my grandma's house, and I looked up to him for that. And then when he started writing, I would just be like, "Oh wow!" Do you know that he's my uncle? He's my uncle.
I didn't know that, and I didn't know that you were an artist, Edward. You're holding out on us. You are.
Well, I minored in art at university, but I haven't touched. Other than doodle, I'm an inveterate doodler if I'm stuck in a meeting or something, but I haven't done anything I would consider a finished piece of artwork in a very long time. But I drew editorial cartoons for the newspaper that I started working at in the 80s, and let's say that the ideas were better than the artwork.
Wow.
Still, that was every week I had to turn out a cartoon. That was a fun few years. I keep meaning to pull them out of. Because my mother clipped every single thing that I had my name on in the newspaper for 8 years.
That's because she loves you.
I have them in boxes in the basement. And so all my editorial cartoons are down there. I should probably scan them before that all turns into dust because they're on 40-year-old newsprint at this point.
Plus, you said you have a scanner.
I do. That's all it takes.
State of the art.
And my grandma also, she kept Ed was like he is a really young uncle.
My daughter's younger than her youngest daughter.
Yeah. So he's just a little kid, but when I was born, but my grandma also kept every little scrap of everything that I've ever drawn. So I have binders of artwork that I did growing up that my grandma kept. So She was good at that, documenting.
There's a picture of me at the age of 13 holding Wendi as a baby, which we really should have put in the poetry book.
Yeah,
at
we
least.
should have.
Yes.
I look like this.
Affair. I love it.
What is this thing? Why am I holding?
I'm sorry. I don't believe Wendy's that old. I don't believe it.
No.
I don't believe it.
You should say you can't believe I'm that young. That would be.
Yeah.
Better.
I didn't say that though, Ed. I'm sorry to say. I didn't say that. I said what I meant to say.
Oh, I love it. That was a good one, Edward. That's going down in the books for 2024. The way to kick off attacking Russell. I love it. That was.
That didn't attack me. That attacked Ed. He attacked himself.
You're the one that should have said it. That's the whole thing. Oh, I love it. I'm telling you, Monday mornings, you guys, are my favorite day of the week. I know Mondays for a lot of people, they're drag, but Monday mornings, when I get to hang out with all of you guys, meet amazing authors, publishers, creatives, is the most fun for me, and it really sets the tone. So, Edward, thank you, because you have made my week by saying that, and it's made me so happy.
No!
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love it. Well, Edward, what else does ShadowPaw Press have happening in 2024? What are some
It's a very big year. It's kind of a make or break year to see if this is going to work or not. But I have a few big things coming up simultaneous with the release of the anthology, which comes out January 23rd and will be available everywhere, is a new novel from an author named Nir Yaniv. He's an Israeli-born author that lives in Los Angeles now. And he has a book called The Good Soldier, which is MASH meets Catch-22 in outer space, or MASH meets Starship Troopers. That might be a better way to put it, or Catch-22 meets Starship Troopers. Very funny book. Then in early February, I have a YA book I'm publishing by a Canadian author named Mark Morton, kind of a futuristic dystopian thing called The Headmasters. My biggest one is in May. I have North American print rights to Robert J. Sawyer's new book, The Downloaded, which came out as an Audible original with an A-list cast, like Brendan Fraser is one of the cast members for The Downloaded, and I have the print rights for that, so that comes out in May. I've got two previously unpublished novels by the late great Dave Duncan, fantasy author from Canada, I'm publishing. I've got two poetry books, one new and one reprint, coming out this summer, and then looking at the fall, I have a picture book, a couple of literary novels, and a couple of more science fiction novels, and that's kind of what I'm looking at for this year. Oh yeah, and there were a couple of literary reprints in there as well, so I'm not quite sure I'm sane, but I'm doing a lot.
Yeah. I was gonna say, you're not doing anything at all. You're just
it's only me and the cat, ShadowPaw, after whom the press is named, and he's absolutely no help. No help at all.
The audacity of him. I just can't believe it. You have to contribute your weight. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Well, there's pictures on every book, and Wendi drew that too. She drew the logo for ShadowPaw Press. So.
Very cool.
So at least he's kind of present in spirit, I guess.
Yes.
Well, it's a cat. That's expected.
Yeah, they're there for moral support.
Yeah, most of the time he just ignores me, but when he does give support, he's on my lap and in the way, so I'm not sure he's very supportive.
I can relate to that 100%. I had a cat that did that, would sit right here underneath my monitor, or would go up and back, or back and forth. And usually when Russell would just, love it.
You love that cat, and that was some of the best parts of the show.
I did. I absolutely loved him. He was very vocal, and the neighborhood knew who he was. So it was fabulous. I love it. And I'm not a big cat person, but he did make me one. So I can attest to cats being like that. But wow, Edward, you have a lot of really big, predominant names that you're going to be publishing this coming year, and a lot of avenues that you're going down. So how do you manage your time? I thought I did a whole lot, but you have a lot coming out this year. Really.
Yeah, it's a challenge. There's always something I can be doing on the publishing side. And meanwhile, I'm trying to rebalance. One of my New Year's resolutions is to rebalance my time, so I'm doing my own writing and not letting the publishing side of things take over. One thing that has improved is that ShadowPaw Press is now a member of Literary Press Group Canada, and as a result of that, I have proper distribution through LitDistco. So there's some things I used to have to do that I have gotten a little bit off my plate, and I have an editorial board now, so there's other people reading submissions. Not that I'm open to submissions because I'm swamped, but other people are doing some editing. I'm starting to hire editors a little bit instead of doing all the editing myself. But it's still, there's no way I should be putting out this many books in 1 year, and I'm not quite sure how it happened.
Yeah, but it's exciting to see where things are going, and it's evolving into what it is becoming and where it's going to go. And I think that that's an amazing, fascinating thing, especially, you know, when 23 was really hard for small presses. It was very difficult. We saw a lot of them kind of closed down. So to see yours growing and expanding and thriving is an amazing thing. So I'm here for it, Edward. I'm
a year from now, I might be back on saying, well, I'm back to just being a writer now. So we'll see how it goes.
Hey, I'm excited for whatever holds in the future for you. And I hope that you do get back to your writing. I mean, with the intro that you gave of 60 novels, I mean, I hope that you can get back to it. I think.
Well, I did just write a short story, the one for that anthology I was talking about, Last Ditch, and I really enjoyed being back in the writing side of things. And I have novels, as I said, I might kickstart. I have a number of things, sequels to stuff that's been out that it's just, you know, there's a million things I could be working on. So I do hope to produce a novel or two this year.
Well, at least you said you had the editorial board. So maybe with all these things, it'll alleviate a little stress and give you some time to yourself.
That would be nice.
That would be nice.
Fingers crossed for you. Fingers crossed for you.
Yes.
Well, Edward, our time is rounding down before I get the evil glances and stares from Russell. So tell everybody how they can find your works, your published works, and if they, you know, I know that you said you're not open for submissions, but tell everybody kind of how they can get to know you and ShadowPaw Press.
Well, it's very simple. My website is edwardwillett.com, just my name.com. I'm also on Twitter at X, on eWillett, on Facebook at Edward.Willett, on Instagram at Edward Willett Author, because I missed that memo about having the same handle on all your social media accounts.
Yes.
ShadowPaw Press is at shadowpawpress.com, and you'll see all the books that I'm publishing there. And it's also on Twitter at ShadowPaw Press and on Instagram at ShadowPaw Press. And all of the books are widely available through every online bookstore and some brick and mortar bookstores too, especially in Canada now that I have distribution. So I'm very easy to find.
I love it. And Wendi, what about you? Do you do commission work for other authors, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, I've done 15 books totals, but most of them are children's books.
I push her out of her comfort zone when she.
That's great.
You have to do sometimes. You have to do that. So, Wendi, how do people get in touch with you if they want to hire and kind of start working with you?
I've only been hired through publishing companies. Like there's a couple, and I'm not really taking commissions right now. I've gone back to university, but you can find me on Wendi Nordell Art on Instagram, and I don't have a TikTok account, Amy.
I don't either.
High five. I am in support of both of y'all, and I absolutely love it. But let's do closing questions, comments, statements. Russell, let's go to you first.
Okay, I love this. Thank you guys for coming today, and I hope you have a great year. Edward, I think your schedule this year is insane. Yes. And you must have made the schedule way before you decided to start writing more, because you're not going to do both.
I'm going to do my best. We'll see what happens.
There you go. Valerie, what about you?
Edward, I am so impressed with all your progress and all this. It's going to be a great year for you. I'm so excited all the possibilities for yourself and the author and your company. That's amazing. Congratulations. And Wendi, so happy for you and all your new art being put out there in this anthology. That it looked amazing.
Thank you.
Well, you guys, it's come to that time where we have to say goodbye. But Edward and Wendi, it's been so much fun getting to know you. We're very excited about your anthology and the rest of 2024 for ShadowPaw Press. But until next time, you guys, we hope everybody has a great Monday, a fantastic rest of your week. But until next Monday, bye for now.